Hello, CPM Gaga.
Hello, my brother. Good morning.
Morning, CPM Gaga. You're welcome. Let's wait for some like 5 minutes and then we shall go straight to the presentation.
Okay.
So we're going to start at exactly 9:05.
Oh. Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. And participants, kindly bear with us. You can see 9 participants. We are going to wait and give them like 5 minutes. At exactly 9:05, we shall start. And thank you for logging in. Participants, thank you so much for joining in. And as I promised, we are going to start at 9:05. It's now 9:04. So you allow me to start. One of the things that you have to mind is timeliness. Otherwise, if you don't manage your time, you're not going to succeed. So you're welcome. This engagement, we are blessed to have one of the strong pillars in education by the name of CPA Joseph Mugaga Sengendo. CPA Joseph Mugaga Sengendo has a long profile, but I'll try to break it and then we'll proceed. CPA Mugaga Sengendo is a practicing accountant and is licensed as a tax practitioner. He's a partner at Semo and Associates CPA. He completed ATC, Accounting Technician's Diploma, in 2006. He's one of the first 3 pioneers to complete the Certified Tax Advisor course, meaning that he has a CPA along the way. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Accounting and Finance in Makerere University. He has wide experience in audits. He has done consultations and consulting work with World Bank, DFID, European Union, name them. He served as a lecturer for over 10 years at Martech Business School and later became a principal at the same school until 2018 when he retired. At one time, for some time, 5 years, he was a finance manager at the Federation of Uganda Employers. He has done several engagements. He has trained so many professional accountants, and he is really not a new person. He's a director and chairman audit committee at Statewide Insurance Company, SICO. He is a director at St. Francis SS Busunju and chairman managing committee of Martech Junior School. He's a chairman audit committee, Federation of Uganda Employers. This is special. He's a choir member at St. Jude Catholic Parish, Wakiso, and where he directs music and the choir since 2000. This is again special. In 2023, His Highness Sabasaja, the Kabaka of Uganda, appointed him as a treasurer for the mighty Busiro County, which he is proud of. He is married to one wife, Karo Mugaga, and he is blessed with beautiful children, including a set of twins. I've tried to edit it, but that is PACTA Sengendo Joseph Mugaga. Allow me to welcome CPA Mugaga to talk to us. CPA Mugaga, you're welcome, and you have 1 hour to present, and then the remaining time will be question and answer. We intend to end at 10:30 because at 11 we shall be having another engagement of CTA 6. The question, the comments, kindly post them in Q&A. We shall attend to them at the appropriate time. CPA Mugaga, welcome, and kindly take over the audience. Be blessed.
Thank you so much, CPA Justus, to allow for your kind introduction. I am privileged to serve the Institute at this time. And I am going to take you through, guys, the CTA 18, CTA 8. Let me share the screen now. A very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. As CPA Justus has made a kind remarks, my name again is CPA Mugaga Joseph Sengendo. I'm a partner at Semo & Associates and a licensed tax agent. As we look at CTA 8, I expect by the end of this session for you to have learned certain things. You should be able to relate syllabus learning outcomes to syllabus content and the scope of an examination. Should be able to understand how they should prepare for exams, and the participants should be able to appreciate the level of detail needed by the examiner for answering questions. And lastly, I think you should be able to apply the acquired knowledge to improve your pass rate. As a matter of introduction, if I had 8 hours to chop a tree, I would spend 6 hours sharpening my axe. Those are the words of Abraham Lincoln, a famous president of the United States of America, former. The phrase simply means that the secret of any success lies in the preparation. Ladies and gentlemen, to be successful, whether it is CTA 8 or any other paper, you have to take a lot of time to prepare for this paper. You see, even God had a master plan in Genesis. His plan was to create man, but he took 5 days trying to prepare or to lay a foundation for a man. Indeed, on the 6th day, he did make man. Incidentally, after making Adam did not appreciate everything God had made. And God, that's how he went back to create Eve. So this means preparation right from Genesis is a key element of any successful plan. Preparation for an exam is like preparing for a war. It actually starts the moment you perceive to take an exam. As long as you think you're going to sit CTA 8, whether you are determining it in December or in July or in April, you must start preparing for that exam. An average candidate statistically will need close to 180 to 240 hours of study and preparing for a CTA exam. These hours, if you calculate them and bring them to smaller amounts, that's about 4 to 6 hours per week preparing for only one exam. The CTA 8 exam, you should all remember that in 2023, ISPAO launched a new syllabus for CTA. Some of the candidates had the opportunity to take an exam in the old syllabus and then in the new syllabus, the same exam. But the new syllabus overall aim is to equip the learner with competencies in resolving income tax issues. I want you to mark the word resolving. Unless candidates understand what resolving means, their pass rates will not improve. To resolve an issue, you require to put a debate. You require to introduce a topic, talk about it, dig into the details, and come to meaningful, logical conclusion. Many candidates lack this, I believe. When they are writing their solutions, possibly they directly go to the answer. But we put into mind that the taxpayer to whom you are engaging with actually does not know anything about the issue and is coming to consult you make sure you give him that kind of advice or knowledge to understand what you are talking about, and then logically arrive onto a conclusion. So the overall aim of this syllabus is to equip the learner with the competencies in resolving income tax issues, not any other tax, but income tax. So CTA 8 requires a candidate's ability to apply income tax provisions, to analyze income tax issues, to synthesize elements and forming alternatives, and evaluating material provided. There are 4 terms used here: apply, analyze, synthesize, evaluate material. Application goes with applying this, the information given to a practical scenario which has been provided to you using the knowledge you have acquired from different readings and materials. Analyze goes with examining in detail the income tax issues presented to you. You have to dig the connotative meanings that have been embedded in the scenario so that you are able to assess, you are able to evaluate the message that has been relayed to you. Synthesize simply means marrying the different parts of the Income Tax Act, the Tax Procedures Act, and you are able to form ideas that are coherent. You realize there are different parts of the Income Tax Act which also speak directly to the Tax Procedures Code. It is not all about reading one section and you say, I am done with the section 19 employment income. No, there is also a schedule that defines certain benefits. There are also procedures in the TPC that talk about the way you are going to deal with returns and everything. Now, synthesizing requires you to gather all of that information in a harmonious manner so that you are able to communicate professionally. So, ladies and gentlemen, candidates of this paper requires you to apply knowledge from income tax provisions, to analyze income tax issues, to synthesize elements and forming alternatives, and evaluate material provided. But then what does the examiner expect from you? The examination is set to envisage a candidate with the ability to analyze tax issues, to apply case law, and then provide professional solutions. 3 things. Analyze tax issues. There are always scenarios given to you in this paper. Apply case law, which many candidates intentionally or unknowingly dodge, and then provide a professional solution. And this is expected in 3 hours. Only 3 hours. The examiner expects you to demonstrate all the above skills. Section A of the paper is compulsory, and it is awarded 50 marks. Section B, you'll take 2 questions from section B, each of them carrying 25 marks. There is always a talk in a town, but really, is CTA 8 hard to pass? Whether it is hard or otherwise, it is your own perception, and we can't control your perception. Your perception determines your attitude, how you are going to prepare, how you are going to answer your questions. The perception is going to lead you somewhere. Sometimes the problem itself. The exam Cta 8 is meticulously set for an average student. However, a candidate should know that this paper assumes the prior knowledge about income tax and the ability to follow trends. A good number of you have done taxation at lower levels, either in your legal profession or in your CPA or in your other qualification. You have done this paper. This paper is not set for a person who is just learning new things, because you have learned certain things at your level, lower levels. The other thing, this is the last income tax exam in the CTA qualification. So the size, the amount, the variety of information and the question, the richness is going to be set, bearing in mind that this is your last income tax paper in the CTA. So you should always expect the best, from the smallest to the largest. Then it prepares you for diverse income tax practical scenarios. The scenarios that appear in this paper are not the scenarios you are going to just say yes or no, like you are sitting a P7 level exam. The scenarios here are actually picked from practical scenarios in the day-to-day work life of taxpayers and tax practitioners. I have always liked the way the examiner puts these scenarios in the practical manner, because quite often we want to translate a candidate who has completed the CTA to go to the field and have the ability to handle these cases as and when they come without fear of favor. Therefore, just know the exam, whether it's hard or not hard, it assumes you know something already. It is also the last paper in this program for income tax, and it prepares you for diverse income tax practical scenarios. The Cta 8 syllabus has only 7 items, but of course with the details. Part A is on chargeable income. Part B is on capital allowances. Part C is on taxation of residents and non-residents. Part D is on withholding tax. Part E is on income tax procedures. Part F is on taxation of specialized activities, including not-for-profit organizations, financial institutions, insurance companies, and petroleum operations. And the last part is on tax planning. The details, you can see the details in the syllabus. But these are manageable parts because you already have a large amount of information behind each of these areas. What I urge you to do is to read the whole syllabus and appreciate the contents. There are many different subtopics that are embedded under each of these areas. But my friend, don't dare going to the exam without reading all these details. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to pick a sample exam of the December 2023. not in a way that I want to give you answers, but to pick out some salient things that the exam focused on and also advise you accordingly. The December 2023 exam, question 1, which is a compulsory question, it was a scenario of a one Haji Bumali who had an arrangement with the bank in which the bank bought him, bought him building materials to construct a building which the bank occupied later at its completion. The arrangement with this bank, with the Haji Bumali, the bank bought building materials for Haji Bumali to construct a building, and when the building was completed, the bank occupied the building. URA learns about this arrangement, and they issued an additional assessment and went further to collect the money through a third-party agency notes. The arguments and details are in the scenario. But the point of contention, URA categorizes payments that were given to Haji Bumali as rental income and therefore taxable. Haji Bumali, on the other hand, was confident it was a recovery of costs of construction. But also, Haji Bumali wonders why there were so many changes in the tax laws in respect to rental income. The questions that followed required a candidate to apply relevant provisions and case law concerning taxation of rental income, the changes in the taxation of rental income over the years, deductibility of bad debts, classification of bad debts for tax purposes, withholding tax, and the application of Section 2040C of the TPCA, which was on waiver of interest. A candidate who sat that paper, if that candidate had read these 4 core cases, they would be at an advantage. Case 1 was on Haji Musa Ntare versus URA. And that was the one which was focusing on Part A, Roman 1. Case 2 was for Standard Chartered Bank versus URA, and another related case of AFGRI, Uganda Limited versus URA. And that was answering Part B, Roman 1 of the case. The other case was Standard Chartered Bank versus URA, a civil suit of 2015. That was answering Part B, Roman 2. And the Uganda Electricity Transmission Company versus Commissioner General URA of 2010. That was answering Part D of the question. Ladies and gentlemen, you realize that the Cta 8 syllabus has a core element of applicability and the synthesizing of information. And most of this may go beyond the provisions of the Income Tax Act, but most of this information we pick from the case laws. Case laws help in clarifying the intended meaning of certain legal provisions. I have seen many people attempting this Cta 8 because they did the same paper say in CPA or ACCA or somewhere else, they actually think they are good to go. Fact is, you are lying yourself. You interpreting the provisions of the Income Tax Act. And most of this interpretation is found in case laws because they clarify the intended meaning, which is beyond the simple phrase you see in the act. Case laws gain insights into the legislative intent and the application of legal concepts based on decided previous cases and relevant legal infrastructure. They also provide legal precedents, interpretations, clarifications, evolution of legal principles, and legal education. The arguments, analysis, and the conclusions in decided cases will fine-tune your analytical, synthetical, and applicability skills highly required for this exam. I therefore highly urge you, ladies and gentlemen, candidates, not to ignore the case laws. They are available, they are all over, and we need to read what our land friends have interpreted of certain provisions. What did the examiner say? Frank is asking, how does one know the case laws or relevant cases? One has to use and apply to answer the question. The fact is, if you have read certain cases, you'll easily identify that this area, this case talks about this area. It is beyond studying section 9 of residence for an individual and say a resident is the one who has a permanent home in Uganda, what all those details. That is mere simple literature. You need to read a case law, for example, that talks about what is a permanent home. There has been debates, for example, to ascertain a permanent home. If you read about section 19 and you're talking about employment income, and this employment income, you see, includes salaries, wages, what, all those details, that is not enough at this level. You need to get a case law that talks about maybe the difference between a non-resident employee and a resident employee. Maybe a difference between expatriate and a resident employee, how we tax them. Maybe a case law that talks about the benefits, taxation of certain benefits. There are many case laws that have been decided on independent contractor and employment, whether someone was an independent contractor or was in employment, because the taxation of these two persons is different. Therefore, extract the relevant case laws. They are available. Just Google. The URL even gives us case digest to give us the summary of those case laws. But even if you Google, you'll find some of these relevant courses. So the examiner commented on question 1 as follows. There was inability by the candidates to demonstrate the changes in the taxation of rental income between 2021 and 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, the rental tax regime has been changing since 2021, but even earlier. It will be very embarrassing for you to go to an exam without knowing these changes. And the examiner noted that you were those people were unable to identify this. And possibly some of them, when they would identify the changes, they would not indicate the years that this year, 2021, 2022, this was the change. 2022, 2023, this was possibly needed in the exam. The examiner also commented there was inability to specifically differentiate rental tax treatment for individual and non-individual. In fact, the taxation regime for these two persons is different. Had you passed the changes that were between the years, I would think it was very okay for you to identify the taxation regime for individuals and the taxation regime for non-individuals, because the rates always and the way we treat them always differs. There was inability to explain the implications of practice notes. URA has a mandate to issue practice notes per the TPCA, and you know the dynamics about the practice notes. They are binding on URA, but not on the taxpayers. But the implication, which is not seen here in the acts, candidates were unable to bring out this implication well. And then the inability to elucidate circumstances when a bad debt is deductible, including classification of bad debts by Bank of Uganda prudential norms. The candidates were unable to really put the real circumstances when a bad debt is deductible. And these circumstances are already given to you. The examiner gave us examination answer guides, and we should be able to know these details. Edison is asking, when you read how other jurisdictions examine their CTA, you see the exam is about the application of knowledge, not recording material. EG, their guide on which cases will be examined. They even allow students to go with the permitted texts like acts, because in practice, practitioners consult textbooks. That is practical. You can't know all the cases in the world. I joined later. Are you a tuition provider? Kindly share your contacts. Justus will answer that. My friend, every jurisdiction has its own, every examining body has its own way of examining candidates. ISPAU at that level does not allow you to go with the materials in the text in the exam. I don't think it is provided for under the current syllabus, but maybe I know that the officials are here, they will guide. So also the examiner said, you confused withholding tax rates in section 19 with section 117 of the Income Tax Act. There was also lack of knowledge on existence or non-existence of double taxation agreements. Members, we already have double taxation agreements with a line of countries: Netherlands, Mauritius, South Africa, name them. Now, when it comes to countries like states like USA, Nigeria, they bring a question. If we don't have a DTA, it is not there. And I also appeal to you as people in the taxation area to read these double taxation agreements. Lack of, there is inability to interpret correctly section 40C of the TPCA, which was a waiver of interest and penalty that came in 2020. That was a COVID waiver. Incidentally, I think many candidates confused it with the 40D, which is of late, of last year. These two sections were differently. The examiner's general comment, there was inability to use knowledge of case law. As I pointed out earlier on, ladies and gentlemen, try to get additional interpretation of the income tax provisions from the different cases that have been decided in Uganda. Question 2 was a 20 question, and it was a short scenario which required candidates to explain the term payment in line with the Income Tax Act and the case law, and then to explain the tax treatment of initial allowance and the depreciation and demonstrate changes in the tax laws regarding the above, and the possible causes of variances between pay as you earn in relation to salaries and income tax. The tax appeals position on the definition of the term payment was provided in the case of ATC Uganda Limited versus URA in 2019. Of course, the Income Tax Act in the section 2 talks about the definition of payment. And section 47 too also talks about the same, whether accrued payment is a payment and things of the nature. But as I've told you, there is more interpretation that has come out, and this examiner was wise enough to pick that interpretation and put a scenario, which ideally should have looked through and learned about the term payment. So in this case, the term payment is expounded to include the modern means of conferring value or benefit to a creditor. It is an interpretation that came, and the land friends went on to define many modes of payment, which are not found directly in the Income Tax Act. In part 2, when is the point at which a person is said to have acquired an asset? And when does a person qualify to claim capital deductions? And this matter expressed in the case of Steel Corporation of East Africa Limited versus URA. The second part of item 2 required a candidate to remember that a cancellation of a debt obligation is business income. Of course, section 18(1)(a) shows that if a debt has been cancelled, that is business income. You had to remember that. That's a simple definition of business income. This implied that the debt which was released by a sister company formed the part of Vyuma Uganda Limited is chargeable income. But if the debt and interest had been converted to equity, the treatment would be different. And this was expressed in the case of National Water and Sewage Corporation versus URA of 2013. These dynamics are not directly found in the Income Tax Act or the TPCA. But when you go to the case law, like the examiner is directing you to use your knowledge to apply to practical cases, you'll find more details and you'll enjoy the reading. It can only be taxed if the taxpayer treated a debt cancellation as income in their financial statements, not as converted capital. In that case, you see, it was a bad debt that was converted to capital. And when it was converted, it actually appeared on the balance sheet, not in the income statement. While section 18 will show you that a cancellation of a bad debt will be income, but you see there is a case that talks otherwise. Simply that if it doesn't go through the income statement, it will not be called income, because it is only that goes through the income statement that will be called income. The debt in a National Water and Sewage Corporation case versus URA did not go through the income statement. It simply changed from a liability to equity. And this one was not categorized as income per se. Roman 3 of question 2 required a candidate to be updated with the changes in section 27 of the Income Tax Act, which included deferring depreciation for an asset that qualifies for initial allowance and a regrouping of pool of assets and rates of depreciation. These changes came in 2021. To my surprise, in 2023 December, candidates had not appreciated yet that there are changes in section 2021, in section 27. This means candidates do not take time to follow the trends in the changes in the tax law, which is very crucial for this paper. Variance between salaries in income tax return and pay-as-you-earn returns, the reasons have been given. And I tell you, the reasons are not found in the Income Tax Act. They are not there. But you needed to synthesize information and material to know that once I put my pay-as-you-earn, the salaries that appear, total salaries that appear in the pay-as-you-earn returns for a year must be equal to the salaries that will appear in the income tax return. Short of that, there is going to be a question, where is the variance coming from? Very good. The examiner gave you the circumstances, how these variances can accrue. This is a common mistake when people are filing returns. You are asked to identify the causes and fix them. And finally, in question 2, the remedies available, a question that always asks you for remedies is pointing at the objection procedure strictly. And according to the examiner, the remedies, you were able to do them well. This was the least attended and worst done question of the session. Candidates were unable to point out the meaning of payment, tax treatment of initial allowance, and the depreciation allowances, as well as the changes in tax treatment of these capital deductions. Also, the candidates were unable to point out possible causes of variances between salaries and wages expenses, claimed and monthly pay as you earn, which the examiner has guided you in the answer guide. The bigger part of this question required candidates' understanding of the tax laws, especially the amendment in section 27 and related provisions and remedies. It also called for applied knowledge when the examiner asked for causes of variances between salaries in income tax return and pay as you earn. I urge you to follow recent amendments in the tax laws. The income tax amendments for 2023-2024 are now out. As a candidate who is doing taxation, you should get interested in what are going to be the new amendments, so that by the time the Parliament passes the act in July, you already have something. It is pretty important for candidates to fully understand treatment of capital deductions, because they help reduce chargeable income and thus tax payable. In question 3, which is a 25-mark question, it is a Luwalua. A question is about Luwalua who bought a property that had been mortgaged by Pearl Africa Hotel and owned by a one John Mutagubia. This property was mortgaged to Gagawala Bank. When the hotel failed to meet its loan obligation, the banker decided to auction the property. These cases are common. Banks sometimes sell people's property. And while the bank was a withholding tax exempt, upon disposal of the property, Luwalua never withheld tax on the payment, forcing URA to assess them 960 million shillings. The examiner focused on a candidate's ability to understand a business asset. This definition is given in Section 2 of the Income Tax Act. You also have to understand the withholding tax on disposal of a business, scope of the applicability of withholding tax exemption status for a person. The withholding tax exempt status, as seen in Section 119, subsection 5, is limited to supply of goods and all services under Section 119. Ladies and gentlemen, Section 118B, withholding tax on disposal of a business asset, is not restricted by the withholding tax status in Section 119(5). And many candidates could not realize this kind of interpretation. But the good thing, the case of Luwa Enterprises Limited versus URA of 2021 gives you details, and this was a battle in court. That's why its interpretation is paramount to a person doing taxation, especially CTA 8. The other parts were geared towards the income tax provisions on disposal of a business asset, as well as non-recognition of gains or losses on disposal of a business asset, where you should have read from Section 50 or 52 to 54, and you are good to go with the answers. That was book knowledge. The examiner noted that the question was fairly done. However, most candidates failed to acknowledge withholding tax status, exempt status, as well as determining the cost base of the asset for disposal purposes. The examiner notes that candidates use the accounting knowledge to determine the cost base. That is so embarrassing. Candidates should note that Section 40 of the Income Tax Act requires taxpayers to conform to gaps as a basis of accounting for taxes. The fact is, there are instances where the Income Tax Act is clear and the accounting standards cannot override the Income Tax Act. And that was found in Mukwano Enterprises Limited versus URA. So IFRSs are used only when they are in harmony with the Income Tax Act. Other than that, please always make sure and remember we are dealing with income tax. Question 4, which is also a 25-marker question, was about Kalailai, Uganda Limited, who was incorporated in Uganda and purchased machinery and made improvements on its building in order to accommodate the machinery. URA made additional assessments to which Pool is not satisfied with, challenging the power of URA to make such assessments. Candidates were required to explain the powers of the commissioner, meaning of substituted year of income, and when amendments start to apply, the recovery measures and assessments and the different timelines. The question here relied on tax education strictly. So someone who had read the Income Tax Act and the TPCA would be a good person in this area. While candidates were able to explain in normal and the substituted year of income as seen in Section 2 and Section 39, tax recovery measures and tax assessment types, majority lacked sufficient knowledge on delegated and non-delegated powers of the commissioner and the applicability of the change in tax law in reference to a normal and a subsidy year of income. The question required the candidates to focus on Income Tax Act and the TPCA provision. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to emphasize the time when an amendment in tax law starts to apply. This was well laid in the case of Crane Banker versus URA of 2013, where an amendment has been made in the income tax law, and the effective date has been indicated as 1st July, it starts to apply on that date specified in the Act going forward. But where a person uses a substituted year of income, such an amendment does not affect their running year of income, but it starts to apply in their following year of income. For example, assuming they make an amendment that takes effect on 1st July 2023, and it so happens there is this taxpayer whose year of income ends September 2023. The year that ends September 2023 started is 1st October 2022. The amendment which starts 1st July 2023 will not affect their year of income 1st October 2022 to 30th September 2023. It will only start affecting them with the year of income 1st October 2023. Many candidates do not want to apply this. On the issue of additional assessments, these must be made within 3 years after the date of the taxpayer furnished a return. All commissioner issued a notice, except in cases where fraud or willful neglect on the side of the taxpayer has been identified by URA, wherein they can assess you to infinity anytime. The 3 years window will be broken if there is fraud or willful neglect. Otherwise, with the normal additional tax assessments, there will only be 3 years behind from the date you furnished a return or the date the commissioner issued a notice to you. This is TPCA section 23, if you want to read the details. As I come to the end, I have few pieces of advice to you, candidates of CTA 8. What should you read? Kindly read the Income Tax Act and the Tax Procedures Act, and make sure you read the most updated version. I one time went to a client as I was giving them tax education on their pay as you earn, as I was invited. There is one client, there is one staff who stood up, that was 2023, and told me, you see, you are giving us information that is very different. The income tax pay as you earn rates, the threshold is 130,000, and the rates are like this, like this. And he had the Income Tax Act of 2010, where he was drawing that information. Now, many of you are carrying all the material. Kindly read the most recent Income Tax Act and TPCA. Read a variety of textbooks, and they are available. There are ones that have been listed in your syllabus, including Domestic and International Taxation in Uganda by Joseph Okujia. Please read. There is information beyond what we can speak, but it will be very important for your passing of the exam. Read case laws on different topics in the syllabus. Never feel comfortable completing a given section or given part of your Income Tax Act. Say, apart on disposal of calculating the cost base of a business asset and this disposal, and you don't read the case law, I am telling you, you don't know enough. Don't read employment and finish it, and you don't read the case law, I am telling you, you don't know enough. And the examiner is going to extract maybe from one of the cases, and he will be assessing you based on that. Read the current issues in the economy and the debates on taxation. Today, I have seen, for example, they want to introduce 5% tax on the sale of land. These current issues and the debates will inform you, and read research papers in journal articles. How to increase your chances of passing? I beg you, Mr. Moderator, give me some 2 minutes for this. Read and understand the scenario well. Don't read the part of the scenario, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you have a tendency of reading part of the scenario and try to remember a scenario which was set some 2-3 years ago. And you think this scenario is the same. I am telling you, these scenarios are different. Therefore, read and understand the whole scenario and try to infer where it comes from. Read the question in the present form, not like a past paper. While some parts of the question may be similar to what you encountered, the current question may require different responses. Somebody may tell you to calculate employment income or taxation of rental income in an exam of June 2024, and for you, you are trying to remember an answer of taxation of rental income in June, an exam of June 2020, yet the rates have changed. The treatment has changed. Read in the current form. Then capture the core principles in the scenarios that are examined. Some of these require a debate, require to debate because you're going to resolve an issue. So what are these core principles that you capture and you have to explain according to the Income Tax Act? Capitalize on what you are familiar with and generate a debate. Allocate your time appropriately. When you see these marks, they are proportionate to the responses you are expected to give, and they are proportionate to the time allocated. When you find a question for 5 marks, for example, and assuming it's not a computation question, you are expected to give not less than 5 responses, so that each response carries a mark. It is embarrassing for a candidate to be asked a question of 10 marks, and you give 5 answers, and you think you are going to get the 10 marks. That is impossible. I am telling you, most likely they are going to allocate, they are going to award 1 mark per each of your response. Therefore, make sure you give appropriate. Present your answer properly. There are marks, I believe, that are actually allocated to the way you present your answer. So when you are told to write a memo, to write a report, to write a letter, make sure you provide the appropriate format, because there is also a mark or 2 or 3 that are allocated to such, and many candidates are actually ignoring. The good thing, your examiner has always given you the way you answer these questions in the answer guide that has been put on the website. Cite relevant examples and sections of the law. A student, a candidate that cites sections of the act, cites case laws, I believe the examiner will be very excited to give this candidate a mark for citing the correct section of the law. Please don't cite wrong sections. If you cite the Income Tax Act or TPCA, trust me, you will be rewarded for that, because it shows you are a serious person and you have actually knowledge about what the tax law talks about. Where a scenario requires a candidate to apply knowledge, for each response, state the facts of the law, expound them, and relate them to the facts in the present case. Don't just remember whatever you read and put them there without relating them to the case. Please make sure you answer according to the scenario that has been given. Possibly some of your answers you are trying to remember will not apply in the present case. Where a question requires analysis, evaluation, or synthesis, build the case logically and harmoniously. Don't go straight to the answer. You see a question like, what remedies are available to this taxpayer? That one requires you to remember the steps of objection procedure. But when you are asked a different question that requires you to evaluate, to give advice, don't directly go to the answer. Plan your answer in a manner that you are able to resolve the issue. Avoid rushing to a conclusion without explaining how you arrived at that conclusion. Write appropriate detail, but being cautious of going astray. Start early to prepare for exams. Consult friends, lecturers, and practitioners as often as you can. Tax law keeps revolving, and scenarios can be approached differently. Your wide consultation to different people, don't die alone, will give you different angles of how to interpret a scenario. I want to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Justus, over to you.
Thank you so much, CPA Salongo Sengendo. Members, you agree with me that CPA Mugaga has really endeavored to enlighten us on what to do. And at this time, I will go straight to the comments and questions, the Q&A. CPA Mugaga, you find that the participants still have the concern, the fear of how to approach the paper. You as a specialist and a seasoned educationist, I will still invite you to put more light on how to prepare for this paper. People are still asking, how does one know the case law that is relevant to the question? That one, where before CPA Mugaga comes in again, I will tell the listeners that if you read the question, I imagine you have the cases you have come across during the study according to the syllabus. The syllabus directs you to give any cases. Of course, you're not reading everything, but you're reading according to the syllabus. And if you look at the syllabus and the case is related to what you're reading, and then you pick that case, how many, whichever number they are. And I don't think there is one specific case you have to cite. If there are similar cases, then you cite one that is well known to you and related to the content. So I'm not the person presenting, but that's what I would say. I'm saying this because I had talked about it. Then there is a participant who is asking about, again, the cutoff and the amendments that are done. CPA Mugaga, you find that still the way it is presented, you need to again repeat it on the amendments. It is still a question that is arising, formally and informally. Kindly, if you can put more light on that, which how actually you pick the amendment, and when it's examined, I'm sure you have the tips on the fingertips, and you can easily tell us more about it. And then those which are for me, I will come to them at the end, but kindly look through the Q&A again and emphasize some of those concerns and questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Members that have posed the questions, and thank you for following. Question is, which cases should you read? And how will you identify them? I want to ask you to be positive, to have a positive attitude about the paper and the post you are doing. I mentioned, and I want to repeat, that there are many cases, many cases. And the colleague was, should we remember all of them? All of them? The answer is no. The better way to handle this, because it is part of your syllabus, and there is no guide on which case to read or the other, the better way to do it is, if you have read about year of income, you see it's a big concept. Try to look for a case that talks about year of income. The definition you have in section 2 and be adequate, or may not inform you enough about year of income. There have been disputes, for example, on determining the year of income. Pick a question, a case that is relevant, read, even if you read one. You go to, for example, an issue on bad debts, an issue on allowed deductions, an issue on so many things. What I mean, there have been cases on different areas of the different sections of the Act. I only want you to develop a positive attitude, to get interested in reading these cases. And I gave you the reason why you should do that. They give you insights. In fact, before I did the CTA, I was also not serious about this. But when you go to the field, you are going to find the same scenarios. My friends, the candidates think that the URA staff know everything. I am telling you quite often, URA has been challenged in court and they lose the battle. We have a tax appeals tribunal that deals with these cases. And when you go to their website, there are cases, tax cases. But even if you Google, you'll find these cases. I have told you the case digest, this write-up for URA, summarizes different cases. You just get to one. Now there is volume 2, which came out in 2022, but there is also volume 1. You just get interested to look through. It's a summary. Each case is not more than half a page. Some of them are okay, 1 page, but they are summarized. If you think it is talking about what you want to know, then you go and dig into the details, pick the case, read the details. But it's a good guide. So my response is, on areas, different areas of the tax law, because this is income tax, and this is the last paper of income tax, get interested in finding the relevant case. Amendments. A question came when I mentioned that there are amendments already for 2023, 2024, 2023, 2024, 2025. Absolutely, they are there. And someone was like, you want us to read the speculation? That came as a result of I saying, get interested in the trends. get interested in the trends of taxation in Uganda. And this is the paper you are doing. You should get interested from the time the amendment has been proposed to when it has been modified to when it has been enacted by Parliament, and then see how it starts to apply practically. That was my message. Of course, some of us, some of you will wait until after next year to understand the amendment. But as a taxation student, you should get interested in the trends in the tax law. But for your information, usually the practice is amendments of 2024-25 may not be examined in the first sitting. I'm talking about income tax. Income tax amendments of 2024-2025 may not be examined in the December sitting. Usually, I have seen the examiner gives you time to understand, to appreciate the amendments, at least for one sitting. But possibly in the following sitting, that amendment will be added, will be examined. So don't get worried if you see the amendments, for example, 2023-2024 may be examined in the June sitting, because now you have taken almost a year looking at this information. Nonetheless, my point is follow the trends in taxation in Uganda, because our paper is income tax. We always avoid a candidate to speak outdated information because we are giving tax advice to different taxpayers. To you, over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, CTA Sarongo Mugaga. Members, you find that he is again emphasizing the point on amendments. He's advising you to take note of the trend in the first place, and then he has clearly told you that the amendments that come in June may not be examined in November. He has used professional clause may, and I agree with him and you agree with me that the practice is that we give 6 months and then that will be examined in May the other year. And when it comes to amendments and what is being amended, as tax students, kindly take the duty to read what is being amended and what is the new law. Otherwise, if you don't appreciate the law that is being repealed, ideally you cannot take on the amendment, because the amendment is based on something that's being repealed. So kindly let us be vigilant as we look at the tax. It is an engaging field, and that's why you joined it. It is very, very interesting, and it involves a lot of current, upcoming issues. So kindly keep up to date. And there is one participant who is inquiring on the possibility of having an open book exam so that you can pick some laws here and there. And as the CPM Gaga has said, kindly be positive. Don't think of having what is not provided. Just take the paper the way it is and be positive and read according to the syllabus, and you'll be ready for the exam. Otherwise, as for the open book, please leave that for now. Whatever reasons you have, we shall continue engaging, and if later maybe we find that it is really appropriate, then it will be done. You know, open book is very interesting. Even you only say open book, you see many people walking in without books, and they will tell you, it's okay. So let us adapt to what is on the table and do the paper. And then another participant was asking which acts are to be examined. It's like the person wants the syllabus to lay out the acts. That one, once again is answered by you being vigilant in the space to know what is taking place, so that you know when read what and what the syllabus is saying and what is related to the syllabus and what has changed. So ideally, that's what I can say. And then somebody is asking for the tuition providers, asking whether actually the presenter is a tuition provider. That one I will not answer it, and he will not answer. But I've given you that he's a partner at SEMO and Associates, Certified Public Accountants. You may find out where that is when you go online. We have told you that he's the director and chairman audit committee at Statewide Insurance Company. At Trico, you can locate him. He's the director at St. Francis SS Usunju. You can easily locate him. He's a choir member at St. Jude Catholic Parish. If you are there on Sunday, you can see him in the choir. You talk to him and he can tell you more. Otherwise, whether he can teach you and whether he can do what, that one I won't answer. But may I know him as a seasoned educationist. So that one, whether he's teaching, get him. There is Jackson Mutsinguzi Kakoko here is again putting some questions. CPM Gaga, I kindly go back to the Q&A and look at what he's trying to ask and then you respond to it. Go back to the question and answer, CPM Gaga, kindly, and see what has come in. And if you've not looked at it, we have about 9 minutes to close. So kindly look at that and see what to say. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Justus. Thank you, Jackson, for that question. Your answers, your responses to the question are restricted to the amendments up to the date indicated in the question. Let me repeat that in Lugbala. If a question has a date June 2020, and assuming we are in 2024, you answer according to the amendments up to that date of June 2020. You do not include the amendments of 2023 or 2022 because that would be out of scope. So always look at the date of the question, in quotes, the year of income. Which year of income has been stated, and your answers will be restricted to the amendments up to that end of year of income. I submit, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Then they are concerned, someone's asking about the presentation he missed, she missed. This is an anonymous person, that's why I'm saying he, she. So due to some issues some people could have missed, we shall upload the presentation at an appropriate time. It will come, but I advise that when there is an engagement, the attendance real time is very helpful, because uploading, you get slides, but you don't get the tone, and you may not get the emphasis that others get when they attend real time. Otherwise, you get the presentation shared. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much once again. I don't see another question. And then someone is saying, is emphasizing again, benchmarking SCCA and publishing examinable documents. Yeah, we are doing benchmarks. We are doing benchmarks, and we benchmark what is comparable. If SCCA is providing the CTA course, then we benchmark according to that, according to the content and how they do it. If we are giving the accounting course like CPA, we benchmark SCCA because the papers are comparable, and each paper is delivered according to its style. Otherwise, I will take it on, and we shall take it on, and we always do that. We shall benchmark the comparable bodies like the one who put CTA UK. We're always in touch with those other providers, and we do what actually they do. We compare notes closely, and if there is any open book, if there is any publication that is shared and it is related, we always really move close to what is internationally practiced as good practice. So no worries. The paper, the way it is presented to you, the way it is delivered, the way the syllabus is laying it out, the way the questions are coming, the way we share the comments, the way the trend is, kindly take it on like that and always engage us as much as possible. We are available. If it is a challenge, you can even walk to the institute. You'll find us. At least you'll find me. You'll find the Department of Examinations, and they can help you and guide you and put more light on what actually could be disturbing you. We always welcome those who have sat the paper, and it is a challenge. You can always come. You can always interact, and you get out of it. And then the study kit, somebody is asking for the study kit. That is Violet. The study kit is in raw stage. Those who are doing the course, like now at CTA 8, I wouldn't really prepare your appetite for the study kit. It may not find you in the course, but the plan is there, and those in the future will get the study kit. But as for now, kindly get the acts, get the relevant tuition provider, the one really who you are sure has an exposure to guide you. Get the website, get to the portal, get the comments we give, familiarize yourself with the syllabus and the laws around you that relate to the syllabus, and look at the question approach, the required, how it flows and how the answer is flowing according to the uploaded solutions, and you'll be done. Thank you so much. I don't see any other, and since we have some 3 minutes, I will again toss back the baton to the presenter, CPM Mugaga, to give the closing remarks as you advise them in 1-2 minutes how they can really prepare for this exam. Assuming you rewind back and you're a student today, how would you prepare again for this content, you as CPM Mugaga, but now a student of CTA in May 2024? And then after that, I will invite Esther Chisache to give us a brief on what is coming on and other engagements follow. Thank you. CPM Mugaga, kindly summarize.
Thank you, moderator. To you, listeners, those who have been following our presentation, I want to thank you so much for the time you have committed to come and log in onto this presentation. It's a rare opportunity, of course. I'm so happy that I've been here with you. I want to thank you, ISPAU, for giving me the opportunity to air out my views to the people in income tax, my colleagues in taxation field. I did CTA in 1 year. I actually had 2 sittings. That's why when the CTA program came out in 2016, I immediately enrolled, sat 3 papers in the first semester, sat another in the next semester, and I was able to complete. But as I was doing the CTA qualification, I really learned that I had not studied the taxation at all. Of course, issues of self-study are a little challenging. You have to look for different materials and try to read. But one of the things I can always point out, even during my CPA program, which I did for, I think, 3 years, commit yourself to pass this exam. Your commitment is going to be blessed by God. The level of commitment you invest in the paper, the level of consultation, the level of discovery gives you confidence when you are going for a paper. There is a situation you actually go for an exam, you write, and even you yourself, if it came out and you passed, you would simply say ICPA is unserious. Because on your side, you have actually not prepared well. Many candidates, I think, do not put in enough time to prepare for the exam. I want to argue, members, I told you between 100 to 40 hours, it is not late. Don't wait for that last week. Don't wait for when you're going to get leave of your work environment. Don't wait for something. Please start now. When you start now, form discussion groups, tell them what you have learned, look at different scenarios, and I believe this paper will be history come after June. So on my own, we support you, but I am not a tuition provider, as someone wanted to know. I am not teaching. I retired, I told you. I'm now a practitioner. So my work is now different, focusing on the practice, not focusing on the teaching. But I want to ask you, members, to commit all your time, because if you keep repeating this paper, finally it becomes more costly. Do it first time, get it right, and move on to something. I want to wish you the best in the next coming exams, I think in May, and God is going to reward you abundantly. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Esther, Sachi, are you there? She may have moved. Esther, if you are not there. All right, thank you so much, CPA Mugaga, for concluding and for giving us that assurance that God will answer our prayers as we sit the exam. And we have indirect taxes coming on at 11. Those who have indirect taxes, kindly log in at 11. We have indirect taxes, CTA 6. And then we shall have international tax session at 2. That is CTA 10. That is today. Kindly be back and listen to other educationists, other experts in that area of taxation. And then tomorrow we have other papers, but those are CPA papers. But as for CTA, we shall end today with 6 at 11 and then CTA 8 at 2. If Esther, you are on, you can give a comment and then we'll close. If you are not on, then we shall close. Esther, please, if you're on.
Thank you so much, Justus. You said it all. Let's meet for the next upcoming webinars. Tomorrow we shall have CPA 12 at 9 to 10:30, and then CPA 13, 11 to 12:30. Thank you so much.